biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Thursday night edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. And I'm going to be totally transparent. So I'm going on, I'll just be totally transparent. Going on vacation tomorrow. We'll explain momentarily what the plan is for next week. But we were trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to lead the Thursday Aaron Torres pod with all day long? We're scrambling, trying to find a good story. Nobody, do we care about Jim Harbaugh? Do we have to do the Jim Harbaugh take? Instead, Team USA basketball. USA. Fun game, thrilling game. They were down by 13 points going into the fourth quarter. They win. They survive. We are coming on right after. And so this just felt like the time. Hey, let's just have some fun. Let's talk Team USA basketball. Let's share some thoughts. If you are watching, drop your comments, your thoughts, your commentary in the YouTube chat. Would love to hear what you all have to say, but do want to kind of hit on this from all angles. Want to talk about the good, the rally, the bad. Steve Kerr, not a fan, but then ultimately what it means for the U.S. as they now pursue gold against France in France over the weekend. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Sports Pod YouTube channel. You can go ahead, click that like button, click that subscribe button. You will know when we go live. Basically, you'll know when we go live. So make sure you're subscribed. We are obviously going to ramp up a lot of college football here in the coming weeks. Also, make sure you're following on social media at Aaron_Torres. Make sure you're following on Twitter at Aaron_Torres. And then, of course, Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram. Quickly, scheduling note. I am actually going on vacation next week. Just kind of how the schedule worked, but we have 2 pre-recorded episodes. I will tell you, I have officially made my college football playoff picks. We will talk about those on Sunday night into Monday, maybe Monday into Tuesday. We'll see what the schedule allows. And then from there, next week, late in the week, we are going to do my favorite over-under win total bets in Vegas. I got 5 that I actually absolutely love. A couple SEC teams, couple Big Ten teams, etc. But yeah, so today we'll talk some Team USA, maybe talk a little Harbaugh. We'll see if we even get to it. But the focus is Team USA. And then next week, we do get to college football, my official college football playoff picks a couple days from now. And then, oh, by the way, my over-unders at that point on Thursday. With that said, it's a busy Thursday afternoon. Work production was at an all-time low. There is no more time to waste. So let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, bluntly, I just said it. Look, I didn't know what we were going to lead today's Aaron Torres pod with. We're generally this time of year, all football, all the time. Obviously, there's always going to be some basketball stuff. I hope everybody, by the way, enjoyed the interview with BYU head coach Kevin Young yesterday. But we're scrambling all day, trying to figure out, does anybody care about Harbaugh? And then as we're prepping the show, this Team USA thing just gets interesting. You're watching, I'm watching. By the way, I'm reacting in real time, so I don't have a ton of notes in front of me. I apologize for that. But I bring it up because you're watching in real time and you're like, oh my goodness, this is a thing, okay? So I turned it on. Team USA was down 12 in the second quarter at that point. And really, to the credit of Serbia, I don't want to say they could do no wrong, but they look like the better, more well-balanced team in this game for most of the game. Obviously, it starts with Jokic, but at the same time, they were better ball movement, better spacing, better passing, better cutting, all of the things that we love about basketball, but specifically international basketball, were on display from Serbia early. And even going into the halftime break, they're up by 11. What's crazy is you come out in the second half, and I'll be blunt, it looked like a college hoops game where the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament is down in the second half against a 9 seed or, a 7 seed or whatever in the Sweet 16. And why it was interesting was because you're watching the game and you're sitting there saying, wait a second now, you're down by 7, you're down by 9, you're down by 12, whatever it is. But there's a quarter and a half left. There's 2 quarters. You got plenty of time. But Team USA plays nervous. Team USA plays tight. They end up, oh, by the way, cutting the lead in the third quarter. Steve Kerr gives his starters some rest. The backups come in, and the lead immediately balloons back up to 13 going into the fourth quarter. So it was wild because Team USA actually played pretty well for a good majority of probably about 7-8 minutes of the third quarter. Once they realized they didn't have to play with their, fire coming out of their ears, they started to play well. And then Kerr puts all those starters on the bench. And of course, the lead goes back up to 13. All of a sudden, you're down by more than you were after halftime. So I bring it up because from there, we all know what happened, and credit where it's due, man. Listen, the best players in the world on the biggest stage. Listen, a lot of these guys, remember, LeBron James, he's been in the NBA forever. Probably hasn't played very many single elimination games. Kevin Durant, whatever. But I bring it up because you're down 13 going into the fourth quarter. And listen, we don't talk a ton of NBA on this show, but the best players in the world made plays late. And when I sit there and look at Team USA and who to give credit for, like if there's a credit pie in terms of who we should be giving credit for Team USA surviving Serbia 95-91, it was essentially the best players on the team. I don't think Steve Kerr did much. We'll talk about him in a minute. But first off, listen, if you're an OG listener of this show, you know that, there's been times where I've been critical of Steph Curry. Now, I will readily admit that after the 2022 NBA Finals run, I largely kind of backed off of him. You win the NBA Finals, no Kevin Durant. It's hard to criticize you. Steph Curry, listen, I can't sit here and say it was the best game of his life, but it's in the darn short conversation, okay? Steph Curry, 36 points, 9 3-pointers made. And what's interesting, of course, is this is a guy that has struggled throughout Team USA basketball. He has not been great in these Olympics. He has not looked good. I saw even coming into this game, people questioning, why is Steve Kerr still starting this guy? 36 points for Steph Curry. You know who else deserves credit in this game? You know who I actually thought played well? Not only the punching bag of all of America, but also basically the international punching bag, and that's Joel Embiid. Okay, listen, I know Joel Embiid has done some stuff through the years to kind of deserve some scorn, but this is a guy, look, think about Joel Embiid's Olympics so far. Shows up in France. He's from Cameroon. Cameroon, of course, obviously has a tie to French history. So the assumption is you're going to play for Cameroon. Okay, you're not playing for Cameroon, but you'll play for France. Well, you don't want to play for France. You want to play for Team USA. So he's been booed every game. By the way, everybody who's watched these games has said, you know what? Joel Embiid should not be playing. Anthony Davis should be the starter. Embiid actually gets benched earlier in this Olympics, doesn't play a single minute. I believe it was against the South Sudan. Well, if I just said that Steph Curry played maybe the best game of his career, I think you could argue Joel Embiid did as well. 19 points, 4 boards, 2 assists. Listen, I know what you're thinking. Yes, you'd love a little bit more from your starting center. Yes, I get that there was a couple plays late. He dribbled it off his knee. There was something else where he missed a box out or two late. But Joel Embiid was awesome. He made a lot of big shots in this game. And then, of course, the other two, we all know who they are. LeBron, listen, at 39 years old, going on 40, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists. And then, oh, by the way, Kevin Durant off the bench, 9 points, virtually all of them in the fourth quarter. The USA rallies, the USA survives. And again, 95-91 is your final score. So to me, now look, I'll be blunt. In terms of this game, listen, I think it totally falls on the players. I give credit to the players. The best players played the biggest in their biggest moments. What I would also say is this. I'm just completely 100% out on Steve Kerr. And it's funny because even as this game, you're getting ready for this game, what struck me about this game, there was something I was thinking about in the lead up to the game. And that was this, is that when you look at, by the way, I think we just flashed my college football playoff predictions from Monday. So I hope you caught that, because if not, you're going to have to wait till Monday. But why I bring it up is because credit to Team USA for surviving. But I was thinking about this, and if we want to do blame pie or credit pie, I give a lot of credit to the players on the floor. I give essentially zero credit to Steve Kerr, okay? Steve Kerr, to me, I got a lot of thoughts on him, but first of all, let me start by saying this. This guy has been a front runner from the beginning. I've never been a fan. This is a guy that, like I said, he's a guy that, by the way, you're down by however many at the half, and you send out Eric Spoelstra to do the halftime interview. Very patriotic of you, very leadery of you, Steve Kerr, to go ahead and send out the assistant to do the coaching. But why I blame Steve Kerr, let me explain, is because I was thinking about this going into this game. One thing I do love about Olympic basketball, and again, I will readily admit we don't talk NBA much here on the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. That's okay. Everybody's got an area of expertise that probably isn't mine. But at the same time, I do love Olympic basketball. And why I love Olympic basketball is because, especially for Team USA, you basically get all the best players in the world on the same team. And you really kind of get to figure out, and I know this is like cliche sports talk radio stuff, but you kind of get to figure out, okay, who's the alpha here? Who's that dude? Who's going to take over? Who's going to whatever, right? And so you go back to 2008, the Redeem Team. Kobe, remember, we've all seen the Redeem Team documentary. If you haven't, it's on Netflix. It's great. They had a bunch of young guys, D. Wade kind of in his prime, LeBron entering his prime, Carmelo entering his prime. But it wasn't until Kobe Bryant showed up that, like, the adult in the room kind of basically was like, okay, it's time to go to work, boys. And Kobe carried that team. 2012, you had LeBron really stepping up. I remember at the time, I think I wrote an article that basically said that LeBron was coming off one of the best years that anybody has had in the history of basketball, because they destroyed everybody in the NBA, wins the gold, whatever. And so LeBron was kind of the guy. Kobe was the older guy, whatever. By the way, by the time you get to 2016, 2021, LeBron isn't playing in the Olympics because of deep NBA finals runs, and Kevin Durant steps up. So I'm bringing all of this up to say that one thing I love about these Olympics is you kind of always get to feel for, okay, who are the dudes in the league right now, and who are the dudes that everybody, that when, crap hits the fan, that basically you sit there and say, okay, that's the guy that we got to count on. Well, I bring it up because I remember watching the game a few days ago against Brazil where they dominated. And I remember thinking to myself, I said, is this going to be a weird Olympics where we don't really have any idea who's this, who's that? Because USA has been kind of crushing everybody all Olympics long. And there's been no like, oh, this is the dude. That's the dude. This guy ain't ready for that stage. Like 7-8 different games. It's really been about 7-8 different guys who have been the best player on the team. And so I just bring it up to very simply say that when I look at the struggles today, and when I look at the issues that Team USA had today, I blame it on Steve Kerr. Now, I credit the players for showing up, figuring it out, figuring out the roles on the court and being ready to go. But the problem with Team USA is that we are now on the verge of a gold medal game. Nobody has any idea what their role is. Okay, listen, we're recording live, so maybe there's some moment where Steve Kerr acknowledges why Jason Tatum did not play in this game. Whatever it is, I don't know. By the way, Joel Embiid started some games, then he went to the bench, didn't play at all. Then he comes back and he's playing again quite a bit. And so I just bring it up because this is on Steve Kerr. I don't have any sense for the rotations, who the best players are, who are the starters, who are the backups. Why is Jason Tatum playing sometimes? Why is Joel Embiid playing sometimes? Why are they not playing sometimes? These are things that we need explanations for, Steve Kerr. And when I was looking at that team, when Serbia made its run late in the third quarter, if you watch the game, you had a bunch of guys coming off the bench, cold, and nobody really knows what to do. I saw a play where Bam Adebayo is dribbling it up the court. He tries to attack the rim and then kicks it out to Anthony Davis on the perimeter. So it's like, that's coaching. that falls on Steve Kerr. Ultimately, it might not matter because this team is so talented, but like that does fall on Steve Kerr. And so to me, little bit frustrated, little bit annoyed. And I'll say this too, even during the game, like when Serbia made its run and took the lead, like what stood out to me was, where was the coaching then? Like, you know, again, I go back to college basketball. And if you listen to this channel, you probably love college basketball because I talk about it a ton, even though I keep saying I'm going to switch to football and we're talking a lot of basketball still. But I just bring it up because of the fact that, in my opinion, when I look at this, what kind of stands out to me is I'm just trying to figure out, like, when I look at this team, what I'm trying to figure out with Steve Kerr is like, what are we doing here? Do we have rotations? Do we know what guys are doing? Do we not know what guys are doing? And so to me, that is probably where, if I had concerns coming out of this game, it's that. Starters, there's 4 or 5 guys that play, but then Jason Tatum doesn't, but then Joel Embiid does, but then he doesn't the next game. It is a weird deal with Team USA. Tell you what, this is what I need to do. I need to take a quick break. When we come back, do want to continue this conversation. We'll take some of your comments, but I also want to kind of switch gears and kind of talk about the gold medal. Is there any concern after today about the gold medal? We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. Mora Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions @gmail.com. All right, everybody. Hi, back. Good to be back. So let's keep this Team USA conversation going. A little bit short there on the last segment. My dog was scratching the door, so I had to let her out. But anyway, let's get back to Team USA. Team USA survives 95-91. We are reacting in real time. If you're listening to this later on Thursday, early Friday, forgive me if I don't have a ton of notes, but obviously the big takeaways, as I said, Steph Curry was incredible. LeBron James was incredible. Joel Embiid, I thought, played the game of his life, probably. And by the way, I'd like to see some of your comments as well. We got a nice live crowd here on a Thursday afternoon. Drop your comments and thoughts in on the game itself. Now, in terms of going forward, let me say this, okay? So I've watched a lot of basketball in my day. Watched a lot of basketball. And I solely bring it up to say this. I know there are a lot of people that are probably sitting there asking themselves, saying, Torres, what do you think? You think this is going to cost Team USA? Do you think there was some blueprint that was exposed on Thursday in this semifinal game against Serbia? I'll be honest. I hate to beat around the bush. I hate to give you the direct answer right now. But in my opinion, the answer is no. The answer is I actually feel more confident that we're going to win the gold medal now than I did just a few minutes ago. Okay, so first of all, let me start by saying this, okay? I actually think France is not a good matchup for Team USA. Team USA, by the way, will play France in the gold medal game. I guess it would be Saturday, this coming up. And so I bring it up because when you look at France, listen, this is what everybody's going to say. Oh, they got Wembanyama and they got Rudy Gobert and they're so big and they're so bad. Listen, bottom line is this. You're not going to beat Team USA just by having 2 7-footers. The way you got to beat all Team USA's best players, guards and wings, right? Steph Curry, Jason Tatum, if Steve Kerr decides to play him, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. And so to me, one, I just think it's a bad matchup for France. Cool. You have 2 7-footers, including a dude that's 7'5". That's great. A dude that's 7'5" weighs 190 pounds. Joel Embiid's going to bully him. Anthony Davis is going to be fine. LeBron is going to bully him. Like, I just don't see where the matchup favors France in pretty much any way, shape, or form. Beyond, by the way, when Wembanyama against Germany in the semifinal went 4 of 17 from the field. That's the dude that's going to destroy Team USA. I just don't see it. And oh, by the way, Rudy Gobert is not the kind of player to do that. So I just don't see it. Beyond that, what I would also say, and again, feel free to drop your comments in the comment section, Aaron, and we'll get to them at the end of the show if there are any good ones. But I just bring it up because when I look at this Team USA situation, what stands out to me is this, is that I've been watching basketball for a long time, okay? And I think when you have a dominant team, guess what? There's always a game that gives you trouble at some point, okay? Even the UConn Huskies, the unbeatable UConn Huskies. Remember that Alabama game in the semifinals of the college basketball tournament this year? If you remember that game, in that game, Alabama, Mark Sears was unbelievable. I remember talking to the players about it after the game. And the players were like, that dude was unbelievable. That was maybe the best guard that we saw all year. And so I bring it up because when I look at Team USA, what I see is not a team, is a team that they just took another team's best shot. They were down 13 points going into the fourth quarter, and they found a way to win that game. And to me, that's the big scare. That's the big scare of your Team USA. It is not what we saw the other day. It is not what we saw on Thursday against or excuse me. Let me backtrack. Sorry, I'm tripping up here. I had a thought in my head. I'll give you the thought after, but backtrack. You look at all the best teams. Like I just said, every team has a game where it could all end. For UConn, it was Alabama in the Final Four. For whoever, there's a lot of great teams. I'm trying to think of some of them off the top of my head. None immediately come to mind. For Team USA in 2008 with Kobe, with LeBron, we talked about them a minute ago. It was Spain in the finals. There's been a lot of close international games, close NBA finals, whatever it is. In basketball, there's always that one game that scares you. But what I think happened for Team USA, they got Serbia's best shot. Remember, here's the other thing about Serbia too. This is the third time that they have played Serbia. They played them in Vegas in one of those early exhibition games. I think it was Vegas, maybe it was London, whatever. I think it was actually Abu Dhabi, but that's neither here nor there. Destroyed Serbia in the first game. Played Serbia in pool play of the Olympics. Destroyed Serbia in pool play. And so when I look at Team USA, one, it was a very familiar opponent who they'd beaten twice. It's easy to overlook them. But then also beyond that, I also just think they took Serbia's best shot, but now they can rally and be like, dude, we just survived the craziest game that we will ever be part of. And now we can't take anybody lightly. We can't take anybody for granted. We have to come out fully focused. Think the fact that it's the final game, think the fact that it's the final day that all those dudes will be together, I think it's going to mean something. We can criticize NBA players. I don't love the NBA and what it currently is, but you can't deny, you get 12 dudes together fighting for the same cause, Olympic gold, you almost lose like they did on Thursday against Serbia. I think that's going to rally the troops and put them in good position. And so when I sit there and look at the situation with Serbia, with Team USA, with everything that happened, I actually feel really, really good about these semifinals. And I feel good about surviving, advancing. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, USA now going for their 5th gold. They play Victor Wembanyama and France on Saturday. Any questions, Producer Matt? Do we have any interesting questions? I might switch gears, talk a little, some other stuff here, maybe some Harbaugh. Hold on one sec. Let's pull up some questions. All right. Looks like Looks like there are, okay, we're good on questions here. Just a lot of comments. I see a lot of people going back and forth. Whew. Tell you what, I'm debating here. I got all my Team USA takes out. Do we want Harbaugh takes? Do we care about Harbaugh takes? Do we care about college football takes? I'll tell you what. I'll give you some really quick takes before we get out of here. Team USA, I can't believe nobody has much to say. I mean, we got 100, however many people watching live here. Listen, I'll say this. I'm being a little bit repetitive, but I do give Team USA credit again for what they did. Steve Kerr to me gave them, no real coaching. The players were playing tight there for a while, but it was the players on that team that rallied them. Again, 36 points from Steph Curry, an insane game. I thought, again, Joel Embiid played the best that he had. All right, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, producer Matt, let's do one more quick break. We'll reset. Any questions on Team USA, drop them. But I want to come back, talk a little bit of Harbaugh, talk a little bit of just some college football stuff, and I think we'll get out of here. Quick break. Be right back. Before we do, many of you ask me all the time, Torres, what can I do to help support the show? You give me hours and hours and hours of content every single week. What can I do to help you? Well, I'll tell you what, do me a quick favor. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merchandise store for all of your team-specific shirts, hats, and more, all available at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. A lot of you wondering, Torres, what can I get in that merch store? Well, first of all, we got our brand new Hope and Pope Kentucky basketball t-shirts. That's right. Mark Pope has arrived. He is here to save the day. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirts there. Also, Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is here. You can get your tees there. Basketball School Alabama shirts. More Hurley 2024 UConn shirts for your tailgates at Rentschler Field, your games at the XL Center or Gamble. And oh, by the way, your Mike effing Woodson gear for Indiana. If you love football, we got you covered too. We got more Dion shirts and hats than we even know what to do with. The freeze warning has hit the plains. Auburn fans, grab your freeze warning tees now. And of course, our new era, new rules shirt applies to Nebraska football and its incredible fan base. We have more coming for the fall, plenty in stock right now. So make sure to check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And you can always hit me up with any questions. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. Hi, back. Good to be back. So let's go ahead and wrap with some other odds and ends from the course of the week. By the way, if you're tuning in, wondering where Team USA is, we just finished talking about them for about 25 minutes. You could go back and check it out on podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. As a matter of fact, producer Matt, why don't you drop the link to the podcast in the chat for anybody who missed the Team USA talk? You can also, of course, find it on YouTube as well. Really quickly, I want to switch gears, and I just want to give the quick take that everybody has had all week long on a topic that, I'll be honest, I don't think as many of you care about as the public would make you think. And that is Jim Harbaugh, the 4-year show cause at Michigan based on some sanctions. And what I would say about this show in general, okay, is the bottom line is when I try to do this show, I always try to find interesting topics that you guys and girls care about, but also I always try to find interesting topics that you guys and girls care about that I can give an interesting perspective on, okay? And one thing that's tough for me is when you have a topic or a story or a narrative where basically everybody has the exact same thought, and I kind of share that exact same thought, and that's kind of how I feel about this Michigan Jim Harbaugh thing, okay? So very quickly, give you a quick reminder. Remember, the last couple of times we've talked about Michigan, what we have actually talked about is the Connor Stalions sign stealing investigation. That was the report from ESPN. They could face a postseason ban, blah, 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 this and that. Well, what's worth noting is that a few days ago, Michigan got a penalty, not for the sign stealing scandal, but for a separate scandal that happened during COVID when they brought recruits on campus during that COVID dead period. If you remember, during COVID, recruits were not allowed on campus. Well, Michigan got caught bringing recruits on campus, and they obviously got caught giving them free meals, which at the time was an NCAA rules violation. So Michigan has kind of dubbed this as Hamburger Gate. In other words, they try to say, well, all we did was give them some hamburgers. It's like, no, you kind of had them on campus when you weren't supposed to. And so with it, the NCAA handed down a punishment on Wednesday. And the headline of the punishment was Jim Harbaugh gets a 4-year show cause, basically meaning that if you want to hire Jim Harbaugh as a college football program in the next 4 years, you have to, quote, show cause. And even if you hire him, there is grounds for an immediate 1-year suspension. So that was the big headline. That at least caught people's eyes. But to me, it's just not an interesting story because I just don't have very much to say different than what everybody else does, okay? So first of all, let me start by saying this. I don't condone cheating. Never condone cheating, and you know how I feel, what I always say. If you get busted going 68 in a 65, it sucks, but by technicality, you broke the law, and by technicality, you do have to be punished, okay? So I get all that. And I'm not saying that what Jim Harbaugh did was excusable at that time. That was a rule that couldn't be broken. Here's where I have issue with this specific punishment. There's really 3 things. One, again, like the Connor Stallion situation, Michigan already punished Jim Harbaugh. Remember, Jim Harbaugh was suspended 3 games to start last year. And I'm sorry, but that should count for something, okay? I'm sorry, I can't get fired up that he had kids on campus during COVID. He shouldn't have done it. He broke a rule. He needs to be punished. But at the same time, he was punished. He missed games. But here's the other part. He clearly wasn't the only one doing it. How do I know? It's because a bunch of other schools have already been busted. Arizona State got busted for doing the same thing. Tennessee got busted for doing the same thing. And so I'm not excusing the behavior. I'm not saying it's okay. But 2 schools got caught. You know they weren't the only ones. By the way, even in the NCAA notice of allegations, they are in the report, they interviewed a parents of these recruits. They said, yeah, this happened in other places. Now, maybe they took it to even a more extreme than other places, but it happened at other places. So it's hard for me to get fired up. And why it's especially hard for me to get fired up is because what's obvious is what I keep going back to in Michigan. It's just blatantly obvious that the issue is not that Michigan is this rogue, crazy NCAA rule-breaking outfit, okay? What the issue is that Michigan, and especially Jim Harbaugh, refuses to play by the rules. That they refuse to say that they're sorry. They refuse to act like they did something wrong if they don't think they did something wrong. And you go back to even that Jim Harbaugh statement from the other day where he said, yeah, I heard about it. I didn't do anything wrong. I find no responsibility. That was about Connor Stallions. But even at this time, he's refusing to even think about apologizing for anything that has happened over the last couple of years at Michigan. He doesn't feel like he did anything wrong. He doesn't feel like he did anything different than any other program. And so he's like, sorry, dude, not apologize. And so to me, that's kind of why it's not a big deal, because he was already punished. The NCAA, by the way, this is the other part too. It just feels so obvious. The NCAA is trying to throw around whatever weight they have left. And I think part of the reason they feel comfortable throwing around this weight is because of the fact that he's already gone, right? Like, because he's already gone, they can sit there and say, well, you're not back allowed for 4 years. It's kind of like when you try to break up with a girlfriend or a boyfriend and he or she says, you can't break up with me. I break up with you first. That's kind of what the NCAA is doing here. They're basically saying like, well, you're not allowed back. And Jim Harbaugh's like, I'm not coming back. Jim Harbaugh could go 0-17 this year. He ain't getting fired from the Chargers. Probably go 0-17 next year based on that contract. He isn't getting fired from the Chargers. But even if he does, he doesn't want to come back to college football. He just led his alma mater to a national championship a year ago. He ain't coming back to coach Texas Tech. He ain't coming back to coach UCLA. He's done with college football. To me, this is all just the NCAA trying to show off and we still have some power. No, you don't. And in 5 years, I don't even know if there's going to be an NCAA. In 5 years, I kind of wonder, Greg Sankey and whoever's running the Big Ten going to be in charge. We'll see. But to me, I could get fired up. I could do the fake rant. I could pretend that this is the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of college sports. I just can't get that fired up. Not about this story. Really quickly, couple other odds and ends. Couple injury notes, I think, from college football that are worth noting. Texas running back CJ Baxter got hurt. Thought that was sort of noteworthy. Also, that Notre Dame offensive tackle got injured as well. And I think that's just something that you kind of got to follow as time goes on here. Because listen, I know I said it Monday, we're going to be doing my college football playoff and national championship picks. And it's just one of those deals where you look at it, and when you see, listen, the thing with this sport going forward, it's all going to be about depth. It's not going to be about who's your starting quarterback, who's your head coach, what's your schedule. More than anything, once you get in, it's going to be about depth. Because one way or another, you're going to have to win 4 postseason games. You're going to either have to win a conference championship and you get a bye, or you're going to have to get into that 12-team playoff in the back 8 and get, try to advance as well. So saw a couple injuries, maybe make it a bigger deal if it wasn't for Team USA, but Team USA gave us 30 minutes of good content. And I think that's it. By the way, did see Pitbull Stadium, Florida International. I'm sure all of you have seen this story by now. We did a post on the Aaron Torres Pod Instagram page. Pitbull paying Florida International $1.2 million each of the next 4 years. Their stadium is now called Pitbull Stadium. It's awesome. It's proof that, listen, in this era of college football is slowly being professionalized. But more importantly, more than anything, it's proof that all these athletic departments are trying to figure out ways to raise money. I don't care if you're Texas A&M, Ohio State. Everybody's just trying to figure out how to stay ahead on the expenses, how to stay ahead when players want to get paid. And at a place like Florida International, you got to be creative. And I think to their credit, they did a good job. Producer Matt, one last call for questions. Do we have anything interesting before we get out of here? Let's see. What is your over-under on Arkansas football this year? Okay. So Arkansas is kind of an interesting team before we get out of here. There's positives and negatives. Positive is schedule isn't insanely terrible. One of only 2 schools along with Texas A&M. They don't play Georgia. They don't play Alabama on the schedule. They also miss Oklahoma as well. And what's interesting is even some of the home games, like they play LSU at home. I don't think a lot of people know this. LSU historically has not been great at Razorback Stadium. I mean, even 2 years ago when LSU won the SEC West and Arkansas struggled, LSU barely survived at Razorback Stadium. By the way, Ole Miss at home. I don't think a lot of people know this. Ole Miss hasn't won. Sam Pittman's 2-0 against Ole Miss in Fayetteville. And so on the one hand, you feel pretty good. On the other, here's where the concern comes in, is I'm a big believer in momentum in college football and college sports. And by the way, like the new quarterback, Taylor Green, Bobby Petrino, I was on campus when he got hired as the OC. And so on the one hand, okay, new quarterback, dynamic quarterback, great offensive play caller. And I will say, I think the talent across the board is better. Landon Jackson's one of the best defensive linemen in the SEC. But what I also believe and what I also worry, and it is just a worry, is that players are aware of surroundings coming in. And listen, this time of the year, everybody is going to tell you that they love their team and they believe in their team and we're going to shock the world and blah, blah, blah. But then you get into the season, you take a loss, you take 2 losses, you start hearing the noise, the pressure on Sam Pittman coming in. And I do worry about that, especially with the schedule. Play week 2 at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's a top 20 team coming into the season, the reigning Big 12 runners-up. I don't think they're the Big 12's best team, but they're in the short conversation. And then 2 weeks later, you got to go to Auburn. And Auburn is listen, Kirby Smart said it at SEC Media Days, Auburn's one of the toughest places in college football to play and win games. So now you're looking at 2 losses before the end of September, 1st of October. Then you have to play Texas A&M in Dallas, and you have to play Tennessee at home. And so if you lose those 2 on the road, which happens, then say you take a loss to Texas A&M on a neutral. Now all of a sudden you have 3 losses. You have no momentum going into Tennessee, and after Tennessee is a bye. And then we know what the conversation is going into the bye, which is, well, if they lose this game, is Pittman out after this game? So I worry. The one thing I will say, like I said, I look at some of the teams on this schedule, and I think there are winnable games. Like I said, LSU has not been great at Razorback Stadium. Ole Miss has lost 2 in a row. So to me, I think it's crucial. You cannot, and this goes without saying, right? But you cannot go into that bye week 2-4. You can't lose at Oklahoma State, at Auburn, A&M on a neutral, and Tennessee. If you could split those 4 and go 2-2, then I think you're 7-5 and you're going to a bowl game, because the back half is tougher. But the good news is the back half, you get those big games at home. Ole Miss at home, Texas at home, which is obviously going to be one of the craziest environments that we've seen in college football in a long time. We remember what it was like when Texas went to Razorback Stadium a few years ago, but that game is also in mid-November, and you got to get to that point with Sam Pittman. So I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say you find a way to win 2 of those first 5, and I will say you get to 6-6 and bowl eligible. I'll say you beat A&M on a neutral. Maybe you beat Tennessee at home. Remember, Tennessee, by the way, like, I love Tennessee, but Nico's a true redshirt freshman who, of course, has never started an SEC road game. So they play, obviously, at Oklahoma a few weeks earlier. You know, if he loses that one, then all of a sudden you're coming into this one worried about playing, in a second straight road game. How do I feel? I didn't play well at Oklahoma. I got to be better. I'm starting to press, whatever. So I guess what I'll say, I don't know if this is underly optimistic, but I will say they get to 2-3 going into that, or 3-2 going into that bye. Is it 6 games? 1 second. Yeah, it would be, I'll say 3-3 going into the bye, the first 6 games. And then I think they do enough to get bowl eligible. They have Louisiana Tech at home. Mississippi State is a team that you should beat. They're not very good this year. First year under Jeff Lebby. And also on top of it, I think you can steal. I know they're both in the top 10, but either Ole Miss, Texas at home, those are 2 games that you can steal. All right. Any other questions before we get out of here? My guess is, I don't know how much there is left. Tell you what. Gave you 40 good minutes of content. I do think that's all for today's Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Really appreciate everybody's support. Listen, we're in August. We're grinding, but we're doing it. And I appreciate everybody who has made the time to tune in and be part of what we do when there, frankly, isn't all that much in sports right now. As I said, to lead the show, I will be out next week. I'm actually on vacation, final little vacation before the football season starts. Good news is, though, 2 shows. Monday night, we will do my official college football playoff picks, my 12-team playoff, who wins, who advances, who gets buys, conference winners, all that good stuff. And then a week from now, on Thursday, we will do my official over-under, my 5 best over-under bets. I think you'll like what you have to see. That's all for today's show. It is time for me to get out of here. If you are not subscribed, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure to do so. Also, go on the podcast feed, rate and review the show. Give us a quick 5 stars. Really would appreciate your support. Make sure you're following on social media at Aaron_Torres on Twitter, at Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All for today's show. We'll be back Monday with my official college football playoff picks. By the way, if you missed any of this week's shows, Kevin Young, BYU head coach, really fun interview, especially given that there's talk about BYU. Do they have more? And they're kind of like the Oregon football of college basketball. Does BYU have unlimited NIL money? It's been a big topic of conversation. Fun conversation with Kevin Young. Time for me to go. It is time to get out of here. Appreciate everybody's support. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. I will be back Monday.